Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSoundAstrology.com. So today we're going to talk about the Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So Uranus has been retrograde since last August, and it went retrograde, which again, it's about stepping back, right? It's the apparent backward motion of a planet in the sky when a planet turns retrograde. And this Uranus is Uranus spends about 5 months in retrograde. It's an outer planet, so it takes a long time, like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. They spend 5-6 months in retrograde. Now, why is this important? Why am I spending time on this today? Because anytime a planet is about to go retrograde, and when it's about to station direct, which means that it's finished its retrograde and it's now going to step back and start moving with the other planets, those are very sensitive points. And the qualities, the messages that it's carrying for its sign, Uranus and Taurus, the planet of revolution, chaos, innovation, genius, world community, right? Technology, all of these things that Uranus represents, the liberation, Kundalini awakening, these are all Uranus qualities. And in the sign of Taurus, which is about our values, what we value, whether it's our money, our personal possessions, our self-esteem, the liberation of, say, old stuck patterns where we've maybe been holding ourselves back or not believing in our worth or our self-worth, not getting present to our genius. These last several months have been a place where we can, that aspect of us, is in retrograde, steps back so we can look clearly and reflect on our progress. How are we coming in terms of these things? How we're reviewing our progress, the progress of, you could say, our evolution in these areas. So when now that Uranus in about 10 days, no, wait, it's 9 days, it's going to station direct. So I'm giving you this heads up because this is a period where things could kick up. And as I have spoken in my previous episodes about 2022, we have, especially looking at that April solar eclipse, April 30th, a real humdinger. And the Uranus is in the mix now for the next year and a half with our eclipses, because the eclipses are in Taurus and Scorpio, major endings, major beginnings regarding Taurus, Scorpio themed, Venus, Mars themed areas. So with Uranus in the mix, that's the wild card, right? It's a basketball. It goes flying off the court into the stands and it bounces around. And it's like, oh my God, what out of bounds, right? The rule breaker, the systems buster, that's Uranus energy. And so we always want to pay attention when a planet goes direct and a planet goes retrograde. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here. Let me pull up the screen. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm going to show you, courtesy of the good folks at cafeastrology.com. I love pictures. I'm such a visual person, right? What do I do for a living? Look at pictures and numbers, right? So here we have the Uranus retrograde, a stationary retrograde, and I like the visual, right? So I think of this as when a planet enters the shadow zone. So in this case, last May 3rd, you see, it takes about a year to go from the shadow, like the shoulder of the highway, onto the highway and then back on the shoulder and out. So May 3rd last year, it entered the shadow at 10 degrees, right? Enters the RX zone. So it's starting to slow down from May until August 19th exactly. It went retrograde at 14 degrees of Taurus. And so if you have any planets at that point, or conjunct, aligned with, or opposing, or squaring, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, and Aquarius, the fixed signs. If you had any planets, especially, the fixed signs within a few degrees of 14 degrees, so it might be 11 degrees to about 17 degrees, especially on the lower side, 11 to 14 degrees, you would have really felt this. And so this is when it went retrograde, right? So here's that little curve, it's that U-turn. And then, of course, it's been going back, we're reviewing, it's moving in primary motion with the sun. So it has this very, it's like we've been in meditation, reviewing, reflecting, contemplating the lessons and the progress we've made. And then here, SD means station direct. So right here on the 18th of January, this is Eastern Standard Time, so please adjust your calendars accordingly. 8:26 a.m. Jing, it makes that U-turn. Slowly comes out of meditation, right? It's like you're rubbing your eyes, you're not out of bed yet, but you're getting there. Once it gets into, after that, into 11 degrees, a few days later, it's like, oh, okay, I'm out of bed, my feet are on the ground, and it starts to move forward. And as you can see here, once it passes that 1448 point, it'll be May 5th, and it'll be out of that zone, fully operational. Now it is direct back here, but like I said, it takes a few days to, just like when you come out of meditation, you don't just jump up out of your, maybe if you have ADD, you jump off your zazen cushion and say onward, but you basically are thinking in that direction. So this is very important because the U-turns, as I'm going to call them, it's kind of like, those stunt drivers that you see on like car commercials or in a movie where there's somebody's in a chase and the car is racing across the desert or the Grand Canyon area, and it's this wide open flat land, and the car would make a hard U-turn and it sprays up all this dust into the atmosphere, right? It's like, ah! And it's loud and it's scary and it's very, it's all this agitation and this dust flying. Well, that's the energy of when it makes that U-turn. Here's the stunt car, right around there, and then again here, January 18th. Now we feel it several days before, about 10 days before. On January, on December 28th, it entered the 10 degree. The point at which it's going to go direct is 10 degrees. So when the planet goes backwards and hits 10 degrees again, that's when we start feeling the effects very strongly. And then Tuesday, February 8th, is when it's going to move off that 11 degree point. So it'll really start picking up steam after the 8th of February. And then again, around May 5th, it will Cinco de Mayo, easy way to remember, it'll be out of its shadow. So that's an important, and any retrograde, this is universal knowledge for any planet stationing retrograde. When that U-turn, that's when you feel it the most. And as you know, by the by, we are talking about Mercury going retrograde, right? It's actually going to be going retrograde this week. And I believe it's Friday. Let me go see here. Let me see. Mercury is going January 14th. So in 5 days, it will be going retrograde at 10 degrees of Aquarius. But today we're not talking about Mercury. But like I said, these next few days, we really feel it strongly. Like the other day, my computer didn't load when I turned it on. I'm like, oh no, Mercury. And then it did. I had to stop it a couple of times. I had to stop and start, right? So again, we feel it more strongly in that U-turn. So anyway, what I wanted to share was back to Uranus, right? So here we are, Uranus, retrograde, going back again. Here it is for the chart of Washington, D.C., January 18th. It is direct. And as you can see here, here's 10 degrees, 49 minutes. Here's Uranus, looks like a cell phone tower, I always say. And as you can see here, jing, see how it turns black? It's direct and it starts moving forward. So why is this important? Well, I want to talk to you today philosophically about this. A big heads up, what originally drove me and what I felt guided to share about was the fact when Uranus is in Taurus, we're seeing earth changes, literally, right? Taurus is an earth sign. So as we've seen all these out of control forest fires and mudslides and all of these earth related things, right? Floods and such, but especially with, and the electrical grid going down, right? Uranus rules electricity. So there's this rolling blackouts in places like California. All of that stuff is very Uranus and Taurus. And so when it goes into that U-turn, right? This is when this energy might kick up more. It'll certainly kick up around the eclipses because Uranus is only 4 degrees from the solar eclipse on April 30th. And again, opposing in November, and then again, May of 2023, it'll be 4 degrees from the sun. So you can expect some earth changes around that. Now, what else could we expect? Well, there's on the positive side, it's also a Kundalini energy, Kundalini awakening. Uranus is about the future, and it's ETs and it's other dimensional, out of the box thinking, right? Just genius thinking, futuristic. So it's very, very connected with ETs. So could ETs land on the Earth? Like, what is it, Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Well, Uranus and Taurus, heck yeah, that's very possible, right? But what I want to really emphasize, though, is what empowering things and tools can we do? What can we do, and what tools can we use to make this time work on our behalf? So it can be very unsettling. It can be, you know, a disruption in the food supply or the monetary system. It can cause it. It's definitely about getting out of our comfort zone. And it's also with Taurus, you think about the senses: taste, touch, smell, the material pleasures, right? Uranus is like saying, hey, what happens if that comfort zone and material pleasure gets taken away? Who are you going to be? With Uranus in Taurus, also, it could be suggesting maybe our sense world is connected to a higher dimension. So I think about, as a yogini, I think about Kundalini awakening. The Kundalini energy is the primal source of life. It resides. We can resist it, right? It resides at the base of the spine. And so with proper cultivation and patience and discipline, with, you know, say yogic techniques, pranayama, yoga, asana, you know, very carefully cultivated spiritual practices, ideally under the tutelage or guidance of a fully realized master, right? You cultivate this energy slowly but surely. You do not do it quickly. It would have catastrophic results. Case in point, the movie Shine with Jeffrey Rush. I think he got an Oscar for that many years ago. It was like 20 years ago, Oscar-winning film. It was a true story about a young man in a piano prodigy, and he was so brilliant, but his mother pushed him and he just went crazy. And so he had to heal himself. He just went off the rails. And so what happened was, you know, his Kundalini was activated too quickly. They don't say that in the movie, but that's what happens when we are pushed and pushed and pushed like that. If we push this, our desire to reach enlightenment and our desire to expand our consciousness, but do it too quickly or recklessly, which is another Uranus hallmark, right? Being impulsive and reckless, it can have catastrophic results. So yeah, we don't want to go there. Slow but sure wins the race, right? Uranus and Taurus, right? Slow and steady will get you enlightenment. Okay, there are some wonderful mantras and things and books that I want to share with you today. So again, just to review, this Uranus retrograde is about reviewing the progress we've made with our enlightenment, with our desire for enlightenment. What can we do to tweak? This has been an opportunity to tweak what's been working, what's not been working, so that when it goes forward, we can, you know, move those ideas and practices forward. It's also about researching solutions, you know, innovative, genius solutions for the earth, like say solar panels or, you know, so battery powered cars and such. It can also be a liberation on the inner planes, you know, discovering our self-worth, our unique self, the unique masterpiece snowflake, Uranus, right? No one like you in the whole world. And getting in touch with our self-esteem and the things that are important to us. And that idea of connecting with and embracing that there is no one else like you in the world. You are you, you do you, and the world is a better place. That's really, really, you know, what does it come down to, right? If we are all fully in our authentic selves, that's pretty outrageous. That's a world that's changed for the better. You know, I could also say that, you know, practically we see it as like a back to earth movement, right? Like, for example, biodynamic gardening. The flip side would be with Uranus, with technological progress, bioengineering. You know, we have on one side, we have bioengineering, genetic engineering. On the other side, we have biodynamic, Rudolf Steiner kind of back to earth, connecting with the earth, living off grid, innovative solutions for the climate crisis, for the environment. You know, so these are all topics coming up. We are reflecting on our technological advancement. You know, how much is too much? Are we replacing our earth senses with digital senses? When you think, like I mentioned before about Meta, the metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg has introduced, you know, it's not about, you don't touch, taste, or feel anything with your physical body. Everything is projected through technology, and you create this world where you're this avatar and you can make yourself look however you like. But there's nothing real about it. We're not connected with our senses. And so that's a question, you know, how much of this do we want, or what choice do we want to make in this area? Because if we are advancing and moving our Kundalini energy up and moving into higher states of consciousness, it's not involving technology in that fashion. Whereas a good use of technology would be, for example, you know, watching YouTube videos and chants and things. And I'm going to introduce you to a few to get us going. You know, we can use it as a stepping off point, but we don't want to be overtaken. That's the danger. This is what happened in Atlantis, right? You read Edgar Cayce's book on Atlantis. You know, anybody who has written anything mystically about Atlantis, Plato wrote about Atlantis, would, you know, say, look, technology overtook everyone. It became like the new religion. So that is the danger here, right? We have to look at that and make choices that will reflect and be reverberate throughout society. Okay, so enough of that, right? So I would say interesting. I was online the other day and I was looking at some mantras, and I came across, I didn't know this. It's so fun to learn about. I learn every day. Yoga, it takes your whole life to. You never quit learning astrology or yoga. It's a lifelong thing. But there are some books and some mantras that I want to share with you. One of them was about, because I'm thinking about Uranus with earth changes, in order to be proactive, instead of being scared or, you know, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, why don't we do some mantras? One mantra that I really was very called, which I found online, was there are different Gayatri mantras. There's like the Gayatri mantra, which is like the mother of all mantras. And then there's a bunch of other Gayatri. I didn't know this. I have to have my dear sister, Shata Benavari, back on. She was on a couple of years ago when COVID first hit. Shata, I need you. Because I didn't know there were all these different Gayatri. I thought there was just one, but apparently no. I was wrong. Akasha, the Akasha Gayatri mantra is to call forth the ether, the space element, and that is for protection from natural disasters. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, sign me up to divert and be proactive with those things. So I'm going to post the links down below, and don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and you can. Because that really helps the channel a lot. But the Akasha Gayatri mantra, protection from natural disasters. Let me just pull up that page real quick. Hold on. Okay, I've got the page. So here's the page on YouTube. And this was a particular one I found, Vayu Gayatri mantra to heal from breathing problems. Okay, so this one is 7 powerful Gayatri mantras for positive energy, 3 hours. So, this, and as you can see here, they give you a whole bunch, 7 mantras on this album. The first is the Akasha Gayatri mantra, protection from natural disasters. That's a very Uranus and Taurus, right? Then there's Agni. Agni means fire in Sanskrit. So just, you know, getting some fire going. What's fire? Light in the body, right? So this is good for anybody, right? Just falls for you. Who needs Starbucks? You just get this Agni Gayatri mantra, and there's your dispel your fatigue. This is the Gayatri mantra. This is the mother of all mantras. But this one, heal broken relationships. Hey, Venus just passed its Cazimi yesterday, guys, but that's another topic with another planet. But hey, good to know. Number 5, Bhumi, the Bhumi Gayatri mantra, perfect for building a new home. Well, my goodness, think of all those, we could pray for all those people who lost their homes in Colorado and, at New Year's, with the houses that burned down, or people who lost their homes this year. Protection for our own home and for the most perfect home environment, we could say these mantras. Here's one, improving your breathing. Hey, we could all use this one in a COVID pandemic, right? Nothing like being proactive and creating higher frequencies of light using our breath and chant, Vayu Gayatri mantra. And then this one is clearing out negativity from our home, Prithvi Gayatri mantra. So there's 7 here, but if you were to Google these, you would find lots and lots of great ones online. But I just wanted to call out that particular one to you. Okay, there are some books that I wanted to share with you. There is, let's see, I'm gonna go stop that share and I gotta pull up the books, hold on. Okay, I've got it right here for you. This book, fabulous book, I read this years ago. It's a memoir by Michelle Small-Wright, Behaving as if the God in All Life Mattered. This is a memoir of a woman who founded an intentional living center in Virginia called Perelandra. And she has the ability to see and communicate with the devas, the nature spirits, and the invisible forces of nature. So Uranus and Taurus, right? This radical Uranus approach to Taurus, nature and the environment, coming from higher dimensions. This is the opportunity being offered to us. So she's got great stories about all the experience she had communicating with the animal world in order to build this outrageous garden. And it wasn't about using Roundup, certainly not, and all the typical chemicals that we, as Americans and Westerners have been brought up to use, like this is the answer. And we know that they've had severe ecological consequences. Well, this is about going back to nature, not just going back to nature, but communicating in other worlds. So it's a great book to read. Another great book, I will say, is, let me see, I'm going to pull up. There's another, a book called, The Secret Life of Plants. That was another one that came to me. So let me show you what that looks like. It is, there's apparently different editions, but this was written about almost 50 years ago. It's a book by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Berg, and it's sentient beings, plants as sentient beings. So that's another great one, The Secret Life of Plants. A real classic in its field. There's another book I found out called The Psychic Power of Plants by John Wichman. Let's see if we can pull that up. Hold on a second. Okay, I think this one is out of print because anytime you see something being sold for $764, right? You might find some used ones here for 23 bucks. It's back from the 70s. Do plants have ESP? Well, that's so 70s, right? But look, this is Uranus and Taurus, folks. That's when Uranus was in opposition, by the way. Now it is in with Uranus and Scorpio. But here we go, Uranus in Taurus. Do plants have an energy field blueprint? Will certain dances increase the growth rate of plants? So, just another, great resource. Intentional, if you Google intentional communities or intentional living, there are very, lots and lots of resources. Progressive farming. I will tell you that there's a great community called Findhorn. So the woman who opened, Michelle Small-Wright, that I just told you about, opened Perelandra in Virginia, I believe it was the 70s. She based it on Findhorn, which is a very world famous, probably the most famous intentional community ever. And that was founded in the early 60s. So it's actually in its Saturn return. That's pretty darn amazing. Let me pull this up here and show you. This is the Findhorn garden story. And I know it was started by 3 people that they lost their job. It was like in the early 60s. No one had ever heard of environmental movement. It just didn't exist, right? But it was 3 unemployed hotel workers, Peter Caddy, his wife Eileen, and their friend Dorothy McLean. And they meditated together. And it was outrageous. The experiences that they write about. They've had documentaries about that. But what they lost their job, and they got this. They moved to this caravan park, like I guess an RV park. No soil there, right? You could imagine, just sandy, nothing, no minerals or anything. But they ended up, a lot of hard work, a lot of faith, a lot of prayer. They turned this, just rough patch of sand into this real like paradise, right? They just surrendered to divine will, and they listened inside, right, to their intuition, and they learned to speak with the plants. So nobody taught them this. This was all self-generated. Speaking with the plants, helping them grow in this dry, barren soil where nothing grew, and talking to the spirits, the devas, the nature spirits. And it's now, and it became one of the most prolific intentional communities in the world. But what he found was he would get in, as he spoke with love in our hearts, and really communing with the soil and the plants as we speak and as we work. This is, for us to do. Huge worlds open up, flashes of inspiration, like it did for them. Believe it or not, they also went into meditation and some very mystical experiences. Which again, this is very Uranian. This is why I'm bringing it up here. This conversation is completely astrologically tuned, not only with Uranus and Taurus in general, which is going to be for the next 4 or 5 more years. But it's also, again, when it retrogrades, and then not only is it retrograding, turning direct, but it's also this particular year and a half with the eclipses there. So this is a triple whammy of how important this conversation is. I cannot emphasize it enough. We've got to change our views and open up and break out of the box of what it means to live on this earth. And these stories inspired me, and my desire is that hopefully they inspire you. I'm going to share some here, according to this, themysticalquest.com, the good folks there. They talked about the Peter, and it was 3 people. It was Peter and his wife Eileen and their friend Dorothy McLean. This began in 1962, right? They meditated together on their patio as they were working. And at one point, Peter said that, like connecting up negative and positive poles in electricity, the energy flowed through me into the soil. This work was transforming the area and creating an intangible wall of light, like a force field around the caravan. They call RVs, I think it is Britain, I think they call RVs, like what we call RVs, caravans. But anyway, again, the power of this divine will and commitment, and look at what we can do. They relied heavily on inner guidance from their source, and many days meditated together. Sometimes they would write down the guidance. Lot of connection with nature, celestial beings. They would ask them, how do you want to be grown? Or, I know in Michelle Small Wright's case, they say, oh, don't plant in rows, plant in circles, the energy. You think about feng shui. So they were not about, planting in rows. Everything was round and moving, like the circle of life. But it's the communication with the devas. And so again, the idea of connecting in this way, creating outrageous results. I mean, we're talking about, like, they grew 40-pound cabbages. Think about it. A 40-pound cabbage. I mean, it's twice the size of a basketball. It's maybe like this big, it's like, oh my God, 40-pound cabbage. Again, this, and roses would grow in the middle of winter in sandy soil. that's miraculous. The only time I ever heard roses growing in winter was as a Catholic schoolgirl. We'd hear about stories of the saints, and Bernadette of Lourdes, when she was in the poor little peasant girl in in Lourdes, France, in this very poor family, and they'd go to the grotto, this little grotto, and they'd pick flowers and whatever. It was a winter day, and she went over in the snow and found roses growing. So, but she had been, Divine Mother Mary appeared to her in this grotto and started talking to her, right? There's that otherworldly communication. And so she found flowers growing. That was the only time I ever heard this, but this is real life. This is Findhorn people. They did it with their own will and commitment and their desire to connect on higher dimensions. Roses in the winter. You can do, right? So don't ever feel that, oh my goodness, this storm came and it knocked out whatever. It's like that energy, this destructive energy that we've been seeing with earth changes is just a wake-up call to go, people, come on. We can turn this around. We have to connect. It's like God, it's like Mother Nature is screaming at us, like, please, for the love of God, connect with nature. You're so divorced from it. You've got your head in a cell phone all day, right? And now you're about to jump into the metaverse. Like, I think we have to speak up. So that's what they're doing. But we have all these wonderful guides, documentaries, books, intentional living communities. I'll tell you a personal story. This happened just about a month or so ago. I was out for a walk with my friend, and we were walking down this little lane, and there was this fence, a little chain link fence, and this house. It was late at night, and there was no one around, and there were this beautiful garden. And here it is, December, and it wasn't, there was a gardenia bush. Now, normally that only blooms like May, June. And lo and behold, we actually saw a flower that was still on the bush. All the other flowers had died and, broken off, but there was this one gardenia. So we went over to and, she found it and she, oh, look at this. So we smelled the gardenia and the perfume. We were like, wow, this is amazing. Well, gardenia leaves are beautiful. They're very shiny. They're like waxy. They look like they're all polished. So we were admiring the tree and we were like, wow, this is amazing. Well, then I kind of wandered off. About 10 feet down was this other plant growing. I don't even know. I never saw it before, but this tall plant, orange flowers. And it was like a composite flower, but there's hundreds of tiny little orange flowers, but they all made a shape of like this pine cone shaped flower head, right? Composed of many little flowers. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I don't know what that is, but it's pretty cool. So I said, hey, check this out. Look at this flower. And it's standing about on a stalk, and it's probably about 6.5 feet high, right? So I'm like, okay, that's pretty amazing. But my friend called me back and said, no, look at this. I found this flower. So I walked away from that tall thing, taller than me. I walked away, turned my back, went back to the gardenia, and we're fussing over the gardenia. We're like, oh, we love you. Oh my God, you're amazing. And we're giving all this attention to the gardenia, right? I turn around and go, okay, I want to show you, hey, look, I want to show you this orange flower. So I turn around, and lo and behold, that flower, I swear to you, that flower that was standing straight up, it went like that. It was at a right angle. And it was sticking, it was like it's sticking its head out, like a horse sticking its head out over a fence, like, pet me, pet me. Like, hey, you were paying attention to the other one, like fussing over the gardenia bush. Well, I want some attention too. I'm telling you, it was this high and it was down like 2 minutes later, 45-degree angle. And then when I came back, so of course we fussed over it. Then a few days later, I walked back at night. Guess what? Straight up. Pretty amazing. A friend of mine who's a gardener, same thing happened to him. He had a banana tree growing in his yard. And he made a note to himself, wow, this big giant leaf, they're like 5 feet wide, right? Long. And he's like, wow, this kind of is in the way of the path in the garden. So I'm going to have to make a note to myself. In his head, he's made a note. Oh, I better remember tomorrow to go get my hedge clipper and clip that leaf away. So there's access. Well, the next morning, that tree, that leaf that was out, it folded down flush with the trunk of the tree, like it hurt it. So yeah, here it is. We have Findorn. It's in our fingertips, right? It's all intention. So I give you this as hopefully inspiration. All right, so we went over mantras. You know, with Jupiter and Neptune coming together in the next few months, peaking April 12th, but April into May, very powerful time. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces, singing for sure. So you can sing to the plants, tell them how much you love them, be inspired by them, let them inspire you. Songs, not drugs. That would be a good you know, caveat for Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces. If you're depressed, just sing. This is going to be a great time to sing and receive inspiration. Anyway, so just one more thing is talking about sound and mantra and singing, creating a force field of light, whether it's holy chant, Sanskrit, Hebrew, whatever, you know, whatever floats your boat. This is the opportunity for us. I remember this one particular story years ago when I was studying Kabbalah, the ancient body of Jewish mysticism, and the Zohar, which is like the foundational text of this particular branch of divine wisdom. There was a great story. The Zohar is written in Aramaic, which is Hebrew letters, flame letters, but it's not the Hebrew language. Aramaic was actually the language that Jesus spoke. So and the Zohar itself takes up, I have a Zohar, 23 volumes, right? And it's all, and so people can scan the Zohar. If you know Hebrew, you can sing it. A cantor can chant the Zohar, right? So this, again, chant, mantra, very powerful force fields of light and protection. Well, I want to share with you, this is pretty amazing. This is, again, the power and thinking ahead about earth changes and drastic weather changes, and how this is the proactive conversation of how to create the world that we want, right? We don't have to buy into fear and getting all reactive. We can be proactive. So there is a great story that I read that I felt to share with you about that, the power of the Zohar, the power of chant, sacred chant, and the power of protection, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional protection, the force field of light that it creates. It has to do with it was a story that I read, and if you can go and read it on KabbalahStudent.com. This was an incredible story, and it was about, in the Holocaust, there was, and I never knew this, you know, I grew up in New York. We knew all about the Holocaust. You know, New York City is the world's largest Jewish community, bigger than Israel, right? So we all know about the Holocaust. However, what I never knew, and probably most people don't, is that there were a community of Jews that were spared the Holocaust. They were the only ones that were spared. And they were Sephardic Jews. So quick story, there's Ashkenazi Jews, which were mostly in like Central Eastern Europe. And then Sephardic were the ones that settled in like Spain, Morocco, that area. Anyway, the thing was that virtually all of the Jews that died in the Holocaust were Ashkenazi Jews. However, and this is what was so interesting, there was a community of Jews in Morocco. There's a Jewish community in Morocco, and they took the advice of this Kabbalist in the 1920s who saw, intuited the Holocaust coming, that this grave, as he called it, a black cloud hovering over the Jewish community in Europe, and to chant or, you know, read or scan the Zohar, to study it, read it, share it, you know, and just, you know, use that as a force field of light, I would say. So anyway, Rav Ashlag wrote this letter, and basically it was ignored in the European community. However, there were people in Morocco, the Jewish community there, they listened and they chanted it and they scanned it, and they had apparently relay teams. Some people would scan, you know, it was like 24/7. They were scanning scanning it, meaning they would just look, and they didn't know a word of it. They didn't understand it. They didn't have to. It's just sacred. It's from this other dimension. It's all flame letters, right? Language of light. So they would scan, and their eyes going, of course, the eyes have chakras, right? These holy vibrations going into the body, creating a force field of light, but then it's shared with everyone in this big community, right? So it's now exponentially expanded, protecting this whole towns and communities in Morocco. And so they scanned it, they chanted it, you know, the cantor, whatever, all these people were, for like 24 hours a day, were chanting. Apparently, according to the former mayor of Jerusalem in the city of Casablanca, there was this man named Andrei Chouraki, sorry if I'm mispronouncing. He was the former mayor of Jerusalem. He used to live in Casablanca. And he said in this book that people chanted the Zohar 24 hours a day in Casablanca without understanding a word. And they meditated, and they did this, they organized themselves in relay teams. So they were definitely committed to being proactive with this prophetic vision that Rav Ashlag had about this coming disaster, right? So they decided, get proactive, right? And so they were at least 5 locations in the city of Casablanca where they chanted and scanned the Zohar. Nobody had a problem with it. Everybody loved it, all the rabbis, everybody. And there's, you know, this is also a Muslim country. So they escaped. But what happened was Field Marshal Rommel, the Nazi general, when the Nazis tried to overtake Morocco, in, you know, how Hitler had made inroads in Northern Europe, in Northern Africa. But the Rommel rolled into town with his trucks and tanks, and he went to the king of Morocco and demanded that he hand over the Jews in his, there's 250,000 Sephardic Jews in Morocco, right? So he said, you know, they got to go. And what did the, you know, you got Nazis, right, with guns and tanks, right? And they're telling you to get out. And what did the king say? Thank you for sharing. You know, he didn't say it perfectly like that. No, actually what he said was, he told them, no, there are no Jews in Morocco, only Moroccans. And what happened? Do you think they shot him or they created chaos? No, they left. They left. They didn't fight. They didn't shoot. They didn't create violence. They just left. And that was, of course, they were the genocide of the Jews. That was their order, right, to do this. And they just, and nobody ever like held him accountable. They just left, right? That doesn't make sense, right? But this is when we're in that mystical realms, we are beyond the realms of logic. So again, the power of sound and sacred chant to proactively use these things. Interesting when you think about it too, at that time, Uranus was in Taurus. This is the Uranus return of the 1930s into 1942. So that was the last time Uranus in Taurus, right? This chaos that was averted, going into the mystical. We avert this chaos. So what channel do you want to be on is basically the question. Which channel do you want to tune into? The chaos channel, or do you want to tune into the illumination, enlightenment, self-realization channel? You can't have both. You gotta pick what dial you're gonna tune into. So anyway, that's all I really want to share with you today. The last thing is here's a great song which is very Uranus and Taurus, and it's about it was a song written by a guy named Billy Thorpe in, I think it was in the 1970s. It was like a one-hit wonder. He's no longer, he's off the planet. He left in about 2007. He was an English-born Australian pop star, and he had a few successes, but I think maybe the most famous one was this song called Children of the Sun. So think Uranus and Taurus. I'm going to share the lyrics here with you. Children of the Sun. Okay. People, so remember, Uranus, otherworldly, ET, right? Your Earth, Taurus, Earth. People of the Earth, can you hear me? Came a voice from the sky on that magical night. And in the colors of 1,000 sunsets, they traveled through the world on a silvery light. The people of the earth stood waiting, watching as the ships came one by one, setting fire to the sky as they landed, carrying to the world children of the sun. All at once came a sound from the inside. Then a beam made of light hit the ground. Everyone felt the sound of their heartbeat. Every man, every woman, every child. They passed the limits of imagination through the doors to a world of another time. On the journey of 1,000,000 lifetimes with the children of the sun, they started to climb. No more gravity, nothing holding them down, floating endlessly as their ship leaves the ground. Through the walls of time, at the speed of light, fly the crystal ships on their celestial flight, on their celestial flight. I just love that. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed that and got value from our little chat. Please tell me, what you think of this and share anything you like. We love hearing from you. I'm always so grateful for your support and all your comments. So leave that in the comment box below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And anyway, so thank you all so much for listening. This is Irlianna Samsara of StarSoundAstrology.com. StarSound Speaks. Have a great, wonderful, fantastic week. Namaste.